but what instead, it is claimed, was a protected environment for those who sought to abuse them.
I honestly believed he was giving me an examination to check I was all right.
This man was sent to Beechwood when he was 13. Now in his mid-50s, he's decided to speak publicly for the first time. He says he placed his trust in a worker there who then sexually abused him.
He did molest me. I went to him for help, and it took some courage for me to ask him. You know, he let me down.
40 years of Beechwood's past is subject to one of the most complex police investigations in the Nottinghamshire Force's history. And the inquiry now goes well beyond this one institution, covering 13 former homes and more than 150 potential abusers. Much of what may have gone on behind the locked doors here at Beechwood is now lost to history. The two councils who ran homes in this area are now promising a full inquiry. But the claims have been growing louder that police and local officials were told of allegations of abuse at the time and didn't respond. A former social worker in Nottinghamshire during the 1990s, who wants to remain anonymous, says sexual abuse was suspected in homes, but claims that police didn't believe children.
My professional opinion is that they viewed them as worthless.
She claims some police officers had an expression for young people from deprived estates.
The first time I heard it was in the youth court. I was stood outside and I had to make polite conversation with a police officer. And he said something, oh, he's a snafu anyway. And I said, he's a what? And he said, subnormal and useless. I think I was just stunned.
The inquiry has meant a challenge for the man whose job it is to hold Nottinghamshire police to account.
They've had separate police forces come in to look at their investigation. If you're saying to me things maybe went wrong in the past, having listened to the victims, I think they're probably right.
The police say they are determined to ensure a thorough investigation. Nottinghamshire is one of several local authorities facing serious questions about how they've dealt with historical abuse claims. Meanwhile, the victims still wait for answers. Tom Bateman, BBC News, Nottingham.
With me now is Dr. John Bird from the National Association for People Abused in Childhood. That's quite hard to listen to, all this, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, are you surprised, shocked by it?
Unfortunately, I have to say, not surprised, but still shocked. We have been hearing these stories for quite a number of years, and obviously we've been running a support line, and we hear these sorts of things being reported to us. It's over 10 years that we've been doing that work, and for many years we've been hearing from people who said, I tried to report to the police many years ago, and they just didn't take it seriously. I think part of the explanation is not enough evidence, and it's certainly difficult to prove these things, but also, as was mentioned in your report, some people just thought, well, these people are subnormal, or, you know, not worth looking after to the same extent as some other children who've got, you know, nice families to live with. It's shocking, it really is.
How difficult is this investigation going to be now? Because as you rightly say, it would have been difficult then, even if it had been taken seriously in some of these cases.
It is very difficult, I think, and the police, obviously in Nottinghamshire and other police authorities as well around the country, to be applauded for taking quite rigorous action. And we know of many other investigations around the country where police are doing this, and as was mentioned, calling in other police forces if necessary. But it is a long time since. There's very little forensic evidence, if any, still there. There are records missing. We get calls from people to our support line saying, you know, I was in care and I've tried to get a solicitor to find my social services records, and they've been lost or destroyed or conveniently sort of, you know, mislaid. And so digging up the evidence and the trails that lead to people who could be prosecuted is going to be very difficult. But
in terms of the victims, I mean, obviously people would like those who perpetrated these crimes to be brought to justice. But is it also therapeutic for the victims that they are being taken seriously now and that these investigations are going on? I mean, having talked to them, does it change them to realise that our society has changed?
It's very difficult to generalise. For some, that is certainly true. I think the one generalisation perhaps we could make is that it's the truth that's really important for survivors to be heard, and for the truth of their experience to be taken seriously by society generally. So it's not really so much about court cases or compensation or even vengeance. What I think survivors want, perhaps more than anything else, is for it to stop. That there are still children today being abused, and we don't want anybody to go through what we went through. So I think that has to be top of the list, top of the wish list for survivors, and then it's the truth. But I think, you know, beyond that, it's hard to generalise. Some people would love to forget about it, but can't because it's in the media all the time. Some people, you know, want to shout it from the rooftops and tell everybody, this is what happened to me. So it is difficult to generalise, but, you know, there's very strong feelings in all kinds of different directions that we hear from people.
John, thanks very much. John Bird there, thank you.
Bayern im Torrausch gegen den HSV. Spannung, Dramatik bis zur letzten Sekunde. Leverkusen und Wolfsburg in einem unglaublichen Duell. Die Teams der Stunde im Kräftemessen. Bremen empfängt Augsburg und den ältesten Spieler der Liga. Torhüter und Studiogast Alexander Manninger.
Ja, es ist in der Tat der helle Wahnsinn, was sich heute Nachmittag in den Bundesliga-Stadien abgespielt hat. Und damit herzlich willkommen zum aktuellen Sportstudio. Liebe Zuschauer zu Hause und natürlich auch bei uns in Mainz im Studio an diesem bemerkenswerten Bundesliga-Samstag. Hier dieser formschöne Henkelpott, der wird uns dann in der kommenden Woche wieder beschäftigen. Die Champions League fängt wieder an, Achtelfinalspiele, natürlich mit dem FC Schalke 04. Der bekommt es dann am Mittwoch mit Real Madrid zu tun. Heute in der Liga so eine Art Generalprobe gegen Eintracht Frankfurt. Oliver Schmidt.